Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue on, kind of blocking in all these areas. And again, this is just a repeat of what I was doing earlier, just making it so that we have just a kind of good idea where everything's at, so I can say, okay, let's go ahead and do the lines in here, and I know exactly the area I'm working in. Same for up in this section. So I'm basically just compartmentalizing everything. There's a lot of blue in this area, so I'm just adding in some blue. Very light amounts of blue. And these blues that I'm adding in, we're going to combine with adding in red later. To make those purple values. Okay, now I see that there's a very white area right along that side, which is kind of what I had hit towards the last lesson. And then we have to define all those little areas. Let's come over here and grab some of this peach. Okay, now let's put a little bit. Let's put a little bit more in this area. More blue. You notice my layers are very, very light. So you want to keep it about the same value, super light. So now I can really see that this is a whole separate area in here. Light, delicate colors. This is not going to take a lot of layers to get this flower finished. Our darkest colors are right in here, really. Okay, let's back out and look, and then I think I'm going to go back over and let's go the opposite direction. Oh, you can already see it taking shape. Okay, so I'm going to let these areas dry a bit, and then we're going to come back and we're going to work some more over there and get. I would like to get an area finished. Start it, work on it, and actually finish it. That way we can move from here, then we can move to this petal, then this petal, and keep working our way around. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start over in this little area right here again. Let's zoom in some more. Okay, there we go. kind of make these little streaks. And I'm going to add some pinks. So I'm just going to keep building up the values. Actually, it's kind of a peachier, color down here. And let's add a little bit of yellow. Now, I've lost some of the highlights, but I'm gonna get those back in there with the Dremel tool and or my scrubber brushes. Okay, so very, very watery blue again. A little bit of the, let's see, let's add red. There was a very light area right in there, and I kind of missed that, but yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to worry about every tiny little detail. And once I really feel my way, in fact, let's move some of this blue over here. That way you can see how watery it is. Spread that color around a bit. And I'm going to come over and pick up some of the red. And a little more red. And a little bit of yellow right down towards the bottom here. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed I went right over that, but that's okay. Now let's really get this color thinned out. Okay, let's come back over to the blue. Let's come over in the middle. Let's spray this a little bit so we can get it watery again. And I might have to let this dry, this little area, and then define some of the highlight, or some of the, where the shadow kind of crosses over, and then add in some darker lines. Okay, now some red. And I'm definitely missing all the light streaks in there, so that's important to me that I get those in there. But we'll go ahead and get this finished first. Now I'm going to move a little bit into the white area. Now the red. little bit more red. Just kind of smoothing everything out. And then of course I need to let it dry a bit. And let's pull the color down and smooth it out a bit. There, now it's a little bit more even, but I'm gonna let all that area kind of dry. See, that area was supposed to be light too. So I didn't have a good, I had kind of a rough start on this area. I definitely had a rough start. Okay, so I'm gonna let those areas kind of start drying. And I'm going to go to my 0. Now some blue. Oh, let's see. Let's get some red in here. Let's put some darker color in here. And then blue. Right up to the edge there where it meets the background. So now I'm building a little bit more value right along here. Let's see, more color. There we go. Now I'm really starting to feel like I don't want to put any more color on there. Let's let that dry. So I'm going to stop and dry it. And then we'll come back. Let's add a little bit of purple right in here so it's not so blue. Okay, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to dry this and then we're going to come back. Okay, I want to get in this little area here. And then let's get a little bit of the purple and right along the edge there, and we'll make that little fold. Let's get some more orange and then this little area is kind of purple here, so I'm just trying to develop some of the values in that tiny area there. Let's add a little bit of yellow. blue, yellow, and some red. Let's add a little bit more yellow. That yellow's getting very dry. Okay. That needs more red. I'm going to pull that up just a bit with my scrubber brush. I don't think I have enough darker values on there yet, and that just ended up to be too brown. I'm just going to pull it up just a bit. In fact, okay, this is really dry, so I'm going to turn this around so it'll be easier for me to do it upside down. Okay, I'm going to use my Dremel tool. I'm going to turn it down to low. I'm going to make sure I don't do this again. So at least you'll be learning from my lesson. And let's see, and actually, let's try this scrubber brush. I am using my my oil scrubber, the cheap oil scrubber. There we go. Okay, and then same thing over here. Okay, I saved it. You know, that's how it always goes, though. You try something, and then you realize, you know what? It's not working out the way I thought it was going to. And got a little bit too much over here. So this is just making me realize I have to be just a little bit more careful. As I'm working my way around these other areas, I got to really watch those highlights. And I think, honestly, one thing that was that I was having a hard time with is the angle that I was having to paint at. So I think this will be a little bit easier. for me to put in veins, just like that. I'm just going to get a watery mixture right here, and let's pull that up, because that was terrible what I just made. So I made a couple mistakes here. So I'm fixing them. Okay, so I'm going to take this very, add a little bit more red in there. Ah, so much easier. I don't know why I wasn't doing that to begin with. Now my hand's flowing. There, see how I'm getting those little light veins, the veins. Aha. Oh my gosh. Okay, I've saved this. I gotta tell you, I had a moment there where I was like, what am I doing? And it's on camera. Look at this crazy mistake I'm making here. What am I doing? That's kind of funny. But you know, it happens. I'm glad you're seeing it, because you know, it's good to know that we make mistakes too, you know, to the teachers, that we're definitely not perfect. Oh, and then that bled right into my area, so I'll have to pay attention to that. Probably should have waited. Oh, see? Now it's kind of coming together. Now I think I know that we're going to just pull these colors out, kind of swish them around. There, and then now we have a nice soft flow of color that looks so much better. Looks very, and it's got I love the style. So basically what I'm doing is just making shapes within those curves. Now I'm going to go to my very, very small brush, and I'm going to see if that's going to let me make the little darker lines in there. So I think what I have to do is just quickly dry it. Now I'm going to flatten it with my plastic spoon, so to make sure all the fibers are flat. Now I'm going to come over here. Okay, now let's mix up some red and some yellow over here. And I already had a little swash of that bluish color, the bluish purple. Oh, much better, much, much better. can see how easy it is now for me, because now my hand is going the right direction. And then as I looked over here, I realized I needed to get another one right in there. So now I feel like I've got a good flow going on there. I just love how it looks kind of, I don't know what a good word to use is for, ethereal, I guess. I like it. It just feels like it's paper thin. And I'm still gonna have to go back in there and want to pull out some little highlights there. And let's go ahead and go back over here. Let's add some of those darker lines. Okay, now let's come up into the orange again. Okay, so now we've got that little fold. See what a difference that makes? Now it's kind of lit up. Before it was all flat because I had way too much color there. Okay, let's spray a little water. It's the best way to learn. You just have to make those mistakes and figure them out. And let's add a little bit of purple. Okay, now this one comes down. Okay, so I'm in the right area. I just have to make that a little bit darker. Oh, so now we've got some beautiful dark values. And that makes up for everything. Once you see a few little dark areas and then you see nice highlights. Like now that that's dry, I can pick up that Dremel tool again. And let's come over here. So I had a little bit of a rough start. Okay, and then right here, let's... Okay, let's go. And here's another area I need to fix, and I will fix that with my Rosemary and Company brush. Okay, so it's all this area right here. Okay, that's already starting to look better. Okay, so I'm going to put that down. And then I feel like we'll be able to call this area finished. So I'm going to go back to my my zero, and I'm going to go let's get some more water there. And just make these little streaky lines. Okay. coming right out from the base. And a huge difference. Okay, now let's go to my number 2, and let's pick up a little bit more blue this time. Let's see, my yellow is creeping over into my red, so let's wipe that up. And let's come over, let's come back into this red. Okay, there we go. That needed more color there. Just smoothing all that out. So much easier pulling these colors down than I was trying to push it up. That's okay, lesson learned. Okay, now let's go back to the purples and let's kind of make them go this way. A little bit more blue. See, then I can pull out little tiny wispy areas. And then we'll get some red. Okay, and let's see. Let me go back to my number 1. I'm going to come over here, get some of that orange. Right over there. Beautiful. And some red. And lots of water. Darken that little area up. And a little bit more shadow color there. How about a little bit more? Let's try purple right along that edge. Okay, now let's turn it back around and let's see what we've done. Ta-da! Okay, I took my disaster and I created light, but that really, that was not working the way I had started it. And I usually film my intro last so that you can see the finished painting, and if I need to, I can talk about any problems. So, and you probably, obviously you already know, before you've even got to this point, that I'm going to be mentioning, pay attention first. Because I really had some problems there. Okay, let's see, I'm going to wait till that dries a little bit, and then I'm going to pull that color out a bit. And pull a little line right through that shadow. We've already got that. Okay. So we've got the top petal done. Now we can start working on the bottom ones. Now I kind of have a better idea of how I'm approaching this. And I can take a deep breath and we're going to have fun with the rest of this. Okay, I'm going to get this dried and then we're going to come back and we're going to do these lower petals. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with this petal. So I think because these ones are so big, I think I'm going to go ahead and wet this. And then I'm going to let the water really sink in. So I'm not going to put a lot of water on the paper. I want to make it have a nice even sheen. Let's get some paper towels over on that corner. I'm going to give it a second to sink in. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to take some of the blue and pull it over in the middle. And some of the red. I think I'm going to leave it just like that. Let's drop in just a little bit more water. And I'm going to take some of the red here and put it in the middle here. And let's go ahead and add a little bit of water there. And let's separate that orange from the red so it doesn't blend into each one. So I have just an orange. That way if I need to pick up some orange anywhere I can, if I see it's anywhere that's a little bit cooler. But for the most part, I think we're going to be sticking to these colors and the reds. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, see how it's not very glossy at all. That's exactly what I want. Okay, let's zoom in just a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to take my number 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this color, very watery. Actually, because there's water on the paper, I'm going to go ahead and wick my brush a bit. I just want to get these areas a little bit darker in value because they're kind of in the shade. And then I'm going to come over here and pick up a little bit extra red. Maybe a little bit more. Actually, a lot more. Let's pick up some more. Now see, because I have less water on the paper now, everything's kind of staying right in this area. Let's get some more blue. So it's almost like I can put it on in little streaks and it's not spreading out. Now let's kind of try that right along this little fold. And now let's pick up some of this red. And we're going to go right underneath of it. See? So now I'm making folds. I'm making softer folds. Every once in a while, you may want to take your brush and wick it a little bit so you can control a little bit more of the water. Actually, I think I'm going to turn this. I think it'll be easier on my hand and for you to see. Okay, now the water is really sunk in. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. Actually, I'm going to pick up some of this orangey color and go right along this side. Okay, I think I've discovered what's going to end up being the best way to get these colors in here. Okay, now a little bit more of this red right along here. So now I'm kind of going along these edges. Now the color's almost sunk in, or the water is almost sunk in. And look at how pretty, that is. Adding this like a little bit. A little bit of some lines. And I'm going to wick it again, and I'm going to come in here. Yep, I think this is the way. I think this is working out much better. There's just so many soft areas and they're all kind of blending in together that I think this is the best way, is when it's just slightly damp. Let's go back into the middle and wick my brush. And I'm going to rinse it, and I'm going to pick up some of this purplish right here and on this side. Now you have to be careful. Don't overdo. Remember to kind of wick it. And if you need to let that color dry just a bit, then you can do that. And remember, as this dries, it'll all soften even more. Okay, let me clean that off. I'm going to wick my brush. Pull this color down. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in there. Okay, now a wet brush. I'm just pulling that color down. Now, this is where the magic and the glow comes from. It's because I've got my yellows in there, so I've got my warmer, cooler. And then I'm going to just pull that color down with a wet brush. More color in there because it's going to fade. I'm going to pick up some blue for that area. Now I'm just going to go over it so that there's an even layer of water everywhere, because those colors have already sunk in underneath in this bottom part. And it may be that I'm going to have to definitely take, I'm going to have to take my Rosemary and Company brush, this flat one, and afterward we'll just pull out those little veins on the side. I think that'll be the easiest way to do that. So we've got, because what we've got is we've got good colors in there, but we don't have, in fact, let's get this a little bit darker. We don't have highlights. And so now we need highlights to really make that, pop. Okay, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that. And so that first layer was, the water was almost sunk in. There was hardly any sheen. And on this, and then we added a heavier water up at the top. And now I'm adding another layer of the color. Okay, and then we're going to let that dry. So let's turn that back around. And now what we have to do is pull out the highlights. That's the only thing that's missing from this petal. The values are perfect. I'm looking at it against this white and the center, and I'm really liking where it's at. So I'm going to get that dry, and then we'll come back and we'll take our little scrubber brush, and we're going to scrub out those a couple of the little veins, not many. And then I really need to get some white back in there. Okay, everything's really dry, so I'm going to take my Rosemary and Company, my very flat one. I'm going to get it very wet, and I'm going to start right up here. And just pull out a little bit of that vein. Another little one right there, and it goes this is so much easier than trying to paint around them. That's just so difficult. In fact, now I'm going to take my, which one? I'm going to use my modified Dick Blick scrubber. Right in these areas. I'm just going to lighten it up just a bit. It's kind of where, because hollyhock petals are a little bit, because they're big and kind of floppy, sometimes they bend, so, they kind of like have a sharper angle. So there's a little bit of a fold right there. Okay, now I'm going to get my oil scrubber brush that I modified. I'm going to pick out just a few here. And something that you can do, if it's too difficult to find the the Rosemary and Company, because they're from England. You can get them from a company called Wind River Arts, and they're in Texas, and you can find their website online. And they're just an old-fashioned company. You can't order on the website. You have to call them. And lighten up the colors a little bit over here. A little bit more. Just a little bit more. Okay, now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go back to my 0. And I'm going to pick up some of this darker color. And just like we did on the other, on that petal right there, I think that needs a little bit more red. Just highlight some of these veins just a bit. And then you can soften the color along the edges. And so now we're just kind of defining some of the dark areas a bit. Just right down on these bottom areas. So we're just defining the shadow areas. And if it looks a little streaky, that's actually good, because then you're kind of building your own textures in there with all of the veins. And now we have form and shape. So now I'm going to come over just to, in fact, I'm going to clean up this edge a little bit because there's some yellow there. So I can have some fresh reds, those pinky quin rose colors. And then right up at the top, and I'm going to soften and lots of water. Ooh, and then we missed that little middle right there. And we missed a little darker area there. And taking a little bit of blue. Let's build a little bit more depth. And then we'll be able to move on to the next one. A little bit more. And as we start building values, let's get some red in there so we can have some color changes. And there's some paper, there's little fuzzies, and that might have also been, no, let's get some red. My masking fluid. Again, that's, okay, so what had happened is I had to stop filming for a bit, and so my masking fluid was on my paper for a while, so yeah, that wasn't good. But it's a good thing I put it on. I'm going to pick up some blue here just to darken this orange. Now back to the orange. Yeah, so luckily, I had put the masking fluid on carefully, but I have noticed in a few areas that I'm getting a couple of little areas of areas where the paper is kind of roughed up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to put that down. Now I'm going to pick up my number 2. And I'm going to come over here, the little bit of that yellow. And then there's my glow. And I'm going to go back to my spoon. I'm going to soften that area and drop in a little bit of blue. Picking up some blue over here. And there we go. We didn't have to worry about any of these colors because they're not opaque. We did not have to worry about them blending together and turning muddy. We have beautiful warm colors right in here and then cool colors. And I don't want to work too much longer on this because we're going to be able to, I'm putting just a little bit more red in this area. So we will come back and then we'll see how everything looks after we start getting the other petals done. Oh no. Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see how we're looking. It's lovely, one petal at a time. That's all you need to look at this, is just one petal at a time. Your whole painting is one petal. And if you focus on that, this is a challenge, definitely. One petal, and then we move on. And we do another petal, and then we move on. And again, at the very end, I'll go around and I'm probably going to take my Dremel tool and pick out little areas here and there. Okay, so I'm going to get this dried and we're going to go to the bigger petal.